Okay, host Judiciary is now going to hear HB 1422. Representative Leon, I feel like I saw you 8 hours ago, and you're still here,
I
which
am.
is a good thing. Good. Introduce this for us. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I am Representative Erica Leon, representing the town of Derry, which is Rockingham 13. And I'm here today to introduce House Bill 1442, which limits the use of certain facilities on the basis of biological sex and provides a clear statutory definition of gender identity that aligns with biological reality. The bill does something that shouldn't be controversial. It answers the question of what is a woman. And it does it the same scientifically valid way as the Olympics, by use of genetics and the SRY gene. That is a pretty simple test with a cheek swab or a blood test. And this bill handles the complexity of disorders of sexual development, I'd say a little better than the Olympics are, because this allows for the 46XX and 46XY karyotypes to be treated based upon the presence of ovarian tissue if it gets to that level of detail. To make it easy to remember, if you don't have a functional SRY gene, sorry, you are not a male. At the same time, here in New Hampshire, the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights has opened a Title IX investigation into the Conval School District. The complaint alleges that a biological male student's access to the girls' locker room created a hostile environment for the female students and violated their rights under federal law. This bill was motivated by the reality that today state law doesn't allow us to give the fourth grade girls who come to this historic building a bathroom free of males. This bill is timely, as the Olympics are taking a similar approach for determining who is a woman and the federal investigation into bathroom policies at Conval. The message is clear: sex is real, it matters, and ignoring it harms women and children. This bill also addresses a big gap in our gender identity law, as it references improper purpose, yet the state does not feel comfortable prosecuting a person who does not have a long demonstrated, deeply held gender identity contrary to their biological sex, and will not hold a male who does not show this longstanding history of presenting as a female to account if he goes into the women's room, despite not presenting as a female in ordinary day-to-day occurrences. This bill makes sure that the sign that says women or girls outside a bathroom means it. It requires public buildings to ensure that places labeled women or girls is just for women or girls, and allows private facilities to do the same. And for those people who don't want to go to that level, don't want to worry about policing somebody's gender, the option of an all-gender restroom is right there in the bill. I have to say, I experienced that up in Maine at the Maine Organic Farmers Scion Swap just this last weekend. And I actually chose the all-gender restroom that had the little urinal sign on it. It was an experience, probably not one I'm going to repeat, but it was one where it is a possibility, because in some areas, if women and girls on the bathroom door sign does not mean just women and girls, it makes more sense to say all gender. So this is not about exclusion. It is about protecting fairness, privacy, and safety. I respectfully ask for your support of House Bill 1442 so that New Hampshire leads with clarity and common sense. And I'd be happy to walk through any details of the bill that you would like, and I'd be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Just a quick question for me. I think you know where I am on the bill, but as far as a standard of review by a court, would it be strict scrutiny? Because this, or is it a compelling state interest? Is there no less burdensome? What level are they going to look at it in a court?
So we're getting into the statutory definitions.
Okay.
So we're looking at the statutory definition of female, and it actually clears up something that we have, because right now in the current language, male and female are interchangeable, man and woman are interchangeable. So any protections we have for women or nursing women or programs for pregnant women are actually truly open to everybody, because even in those cases, woman means man as well. So this cleans that up. So by going into the statutory construction, I think it's sort of striking the root of the definition. So hopefully that should be a lot clearer than everybody who's trying to layer something onto the statutes.
I think we know what a man is, and I think we know what a woman is. So I am all set. Other questions? Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Leon, for taking my question. So in your testimony, you talked about our fourth graders who come here to the State House to start their civics education, as we have here in New Hampshire, and you're concerned that they share a restroom with our transgendered representatives of the House of Representatives.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think it's a lot less of an issue right now than it was 3 terms ago when we had a transgender representative who's currently serving a 30-year sentence for exploitation of children.
May I follow up?
Yes, you may.
So I'm curious why the same kind of fervor isn't applied to people who abuse children and are members of the House of Representatives or are accused of sexual assault, not in the bathroom here. So you're invoking a crime that happened outside of the State House as representative of an entire community where we could possibly, if you want to put that same kind of application, then all people who have outside of this State House who serve in this legislative body who are accused of crimes and convicted of crimes should also not have access. Do we want to do that like across the board? I would be interested in hearing that proposal.
Well, Senator, if you haven't had the experience that some of my colleagues had that were very uncomfortable with that same former representative when they got when they were very, very close in their personal space, and it was a demonstrated pattern where people felt very uncomfortable in that representative's presence, you're fortunate if you haven't had that experience. I would say that the way that I would do this, if this law passed in the State House, I would have all of the first floor bathrooms be all gender bathrooms. And then I would have other areas where you could have some that were restricted by gender. Because quite frankly, there's a lot of people that wouldn't mind going into an all-gender bathroom. I actually voted my freshman year in college in my co-ed dorm to have my floor's bathrooms, including our showers, be co-ed. Because those women who wanted a single-sex environment, most of them either chose the women's only dorm, which you can't actually have without passing this law, because the women's only dorm isn't women's only without changing the statutes. And some of the floors in my dorm did choose to have single sex with the men's room on one end and the women's room on the other. There are ways to respect people's willingness to be open and share spaces with others while also respecting that there are some people who really do want to have a space that they may need to walk further to, where they can be sure that they are not potentially re-traumatized from some of the things that have happened. And I also recognize that by having the all-gender bathrooms, that avoids the problem too, because there is I recognize that there's the issue of looking at people and some people making judgments about people and the way that they present.
May I follow up?
You may.
If only all women's rooms were no judgment zones. Apparently, we didn't go to the same middle school.
So I went to the one where they write all of the
My
terrible
question,
scripts.
Let's get back to your cheek swabs. Talk to me about why only girls and women would be subject to the cheek swabs.
Well, there'd be no reason to be subject to the cheek swab unless there was a reason why you needed to prove your identity. A male also would, if you were looking at that identity. This bill actually says that if you're not definitely female, the law will just treat you as male. So that we can deal with the ambiguity that way. When a fetus is developing, if the SRY gene is expressed and if it is functional, because that is one of the issues, if the SRY gene is functional, then you will develop into either a standard traditional stereotypical male with the XY chromosomes or the disorders of sexual development that are more male. This is basic science, basic genetics. Sometimes it does need to go beyond the cheek swab because if you do have the 46XX or 46XY karyotype, then that is a situation where if you have functional ovarian tissue, you are female, even though you express the SRY gene during your fetal development. I know that it's splitting hairs, but every time we've tried to do this in a less complex way, the question becomes, but what about intersex? What about this? This goes down to the deep science. It looks at all of the disorders of sexual development that we know about. And it has a distinct line on the way that medicine would treat somebody if they were dealing with a medicine that impacts those that are sensitive to estrogen or sensitive to testosterone in a different way. These are the ways that are done, known and validated. But traditionally, you'd look at it, and for anybody where there's not a question, you don't have that issue. And if we're going to draw a line, we need to have a way to draw a line.
Quick question, Representative. So I have 3 daughters, so you already have a record at the school if there's no question, of their sex, what they are biologically. So you're not going to do this cheek swab to everyone, or you are?
No, I would have no intention of doing this cheek swab to anyone. My thought would be that the cheek swab would come into play, that if somebody's denied access to a place that they believe that they have access to, that then doing the cheek swab is a way to demonstrate I am female. Because in the absence of, if you look at this, it says that a female is defined as an individual with a reproductive system of the type of which in normal function produces ova, and specifically defined as an individual who lacks a functional Y chromosome. So that'd be XX, XXX, any of these that are the female karyotypes, and then it allows for the functional Y chromosome and those definitions. But it says that male is defined as an individual with a reproductive system of type of which in normal function produces sperm, because now we know not everybody has normal function. And a male shall include any person who does not meet the definition of female. If somebody doesn't want that, if they don't want to go to that extent, you don't need to take the cheek swab. Just don't access the spaces that are specifically reserved for women and girls. And I would hope that every place that follows this and has a women's or girls' room and a men's room also offers an all-gender option.
And so one last question on this. So it's the privacy interest of women you're trying to protect in locker rooms, bathrooms, and places like that. So the state has an interest, a compelling state interest, some might say, to protect privacy for women. And that's what you're trying to do?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Last follow-up? Yep.
Thank you. So, Representative, you have asserted on a multitude of occasions during your testimony and answers to questions that it would be great and probably a solution to what you perceive to be a problem to have gender inclusive restrooms. And that is not something proposed here in the legislation at all, is that there would be that places of public accommodation would be required to build those spaces. So while you've suggested it, why didn't you just include it in here and save us all of the cheek swabs?
Senator, are you asking for all facilities to be all gender? Or are you asking
You
for some?
proposed that.
I guess if you look on page 3 on line 23, it has all gender as one of the options. Line 37 has all gender as one of the options. Page 4, line 14 has all
Option.
gender as one of the options in order to do this and to fulfill this. And I do also want to say that I do have an amendment that we can have so that we can direct the Building Code Review Board to amend the state building code to be consistent with this, so that we can have that already in the statute, so we don't have to wait a year for it to follow up. But this would allow it to be a multi-user that is either designated by sex or is all gender.
Are we all set, Senator? Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. Thanks for introducing the bill.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your endurance for such a long day.
No problem. That's why they pay us the big bucks. Stephen Scar. Good afternoon. Thanks for your patience and endurance, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, Chairman and honorable members of the committee. Stephen Scare, Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm here to speak in favor of this bill because women and girls deserve their own private spaces in prisons. I also appreciate that this bill recognized that sex isn't assigned at birth, like a seat in the classroom. Sex is determined at conception. If a man insists that he's a woman and deserves the same protections, it's incumbent on legislators to ask the obvious questions. What is a woman? What makes him one? And expect an answer that isn't founded on circular reasoning or stereotypes. When you reach the inevitable conclusion that transgender women are men, and that if they have the same access to men's facilities as other men, they aren't being discriminated against, there's no separate but equal policy. Regarding enforcement, the fact that some people are going to cheat isn't a good reason not to have a law. Most of our laws require involuntary compliance. That said, often men will tell you that they're actually men, that is to say transgender women. And if a man's walking around a woman's locker room, it may become very obvious that he's a man. As for the threat of suicide that's used to blackmail lawmakers, there's no sound evidence that these treatments, these access to spaces reduce the suicide rate. This information comes from polls that are conducted by public advocacy groups, not on actual suicide rates. I've heard Representative Wade lead risks of trans-identifying people who have died of suicide. Suicide is complex, not attributed to just one cause. And you could even make the case that these suicides took place in spite of the affirmation. Activists have pointed out that there's been no attacks on women by trans-identifying men in bathrooms. It's also true that back in 2018, no one could provide an example of a transvestite being attacked in a woman's bathroom. Regarding existing, trans-identified people will continue to exist if we don't buy into their delusions. They won't disappear into a puff of smoke. So thank you very much. I hope you'll support this bill.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Tim, I got you while you're still up and down there. Come on up, Representative Horgan.
Well, thanks for your patience. So hopefully you'll get to go home at a reasonable hour. I don't know whether to, so I'm Representative Timothy Horgan for Stratford County District 10, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. The first thing I'll say, which doesn't have much, well, I guess there aren't any all-gender restrooms as far as I know in the new facility, One Granite Place, but one problem with that is that we're locked out of the building after 5 p.m. Where you, which I guess you probably wish it was different, you can like stay here and have the hearing go on as long as you want, which hopefully is not too much longer. So I'm on the House Judiciary Committee, and we actually rejected this bill unanimously. I guess there were like a couple of different schools of thought, and also there were some, I think they were probably all Republicans who felt that there were other bills that covered the same topic, and this didn't add anything useful to the other bills. And there's some like me, mostly Democrats. I think there's some people crossed over which felt that this was like this was a bad bill. I do give the sponsors credit for trying to define biological sex. It's a very difficult thing to define. I don't think they tried. I think they still haven't come up with a good definition. And one thing in particular, and I think Representative Abbas heard this little anecdote earlier today, because you're also in children and family law, if I recall, which was the part about the functioning ovarian tissue. They inadvertently left out any females who have had hysterectomies, which many people who are unequivocally female and have had done to them, because they no longer have the functioning ovarian tissue. And then I think one of my colleagues actually said, well, I'm going to have to go use the men's room from now on. I think she actually and then we had a brief opportunity to use the men's room, and she actually lined up with the guys for a while. I don't really know if she went in there or not. It wouldn't have been a big deal if she did. Men usually, but we don't usually freak out if there's women in the, it's sort of embarrassing, but we don't freak out if there's women in the bedrooms, and so I could go on. There's a whole bunch of things wrong with it, but I think probably, this is another bill which should never have been sent over to your side of the wall. Our leadership, I'm not even in the minority leadership, my leadership apparently made a decision to flood the zone and take all these bills and pass them all on a party line vote and send them all over here. And I think the appropriate thing for you to do is to find this bill ITL and be done with it. So
Thank
thanks.
you very much, Representative. Appreciate your patience.
Take any questions if you have them, but,
I'm sorry.
oh, sure, good, thanks.
So, thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. I'm just looking at the docket.
Yeah.
And your committee, I think you said unanimously
Yeah.
referred for interim study.
Okay,
Is that
well, that's the
correct?
same thing as, yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
referred for interim study, and it was on the consent calendar.
yes, exactly.
But removed from the consent calendar in the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, and we probably would have had an interim study hearing, not so in the summer when we had a chance, but yeah, that's exactly how I remember it, and I looked at that same docket too to refresh my memory, so, I wish it had stayed that way, but thanks.
Thank you very much, Representative. Nancy Brennan. Good evening, Ms. Brennan. How you doing?
Is it evening? I hope my husband's making dinner.
I hope he's making you a good day. What do you have? We all might show up.
Nancy Brennan from Ware, and I oppose this bill. What I would like to do, I have a couple things I'd like to share with you. One is when we look at what is transgender, this tries to be a little more specific. We all have learned a lot about intersex over the last years, but there are other studies being done, and although they're not totally conclusive, they should make us think, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? First of all, I don't know if you've ever read about the Raymer twins in the 60s, 2 boys born, one had a circumcision botch, his penis, and so the doctor said, we're going to remove the penis, you raise him as a girl. And they did, but he grew up and said, whoa, this doesn't feel right, and he found out what happened to him and went back to being a boy. And some scientists and others have looked at it and said, maybe we can't push people to be transgender. Maybe they are who they are. And speaking of twins, there's a higher incidence of both identical twins being transgender in a family than 2 siblings both being, or 2 fraternal twins, which is also something that scientists and people who study gender are looking at and saying maybe there is some reason that people are transgender. And finally, studies on trans brains show certain structures that align them more closely with their transgender identity than with their birth sex. And this is before they've had any medical interventions. Not conclusive yet, but they're looking into it. There are a lot of these studies. I'd be happy to send them to you if you want. I have a suggestion. Take the idea of interim study and expand it. Have some listening sessions where people like Senator Gannon, who I know the sports, you and I have had the sports conversation, people like the people that put this bill out there, transgender people, if we could listen to each other, really listen. This is my experience, without saying, there's no such thing as trans, or it's men doing this, or whatever, that we listen. I would love it if we could do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thanks for your testimony. Rachel Potter. She left. Okay. We'll read her testimony later, though. Is it Amy Teravaccia? Sure, with who? Sure.
Thank you so much.
You can go next, and I'm sorry, your name? Just.
I'm Pasha Roberts.
Oh, okay, Pasha.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm in there too. So
we're good. Thank you.
yeah,
Go
so
ahead,
thank you
sir.
so much. I really appreciate the flexibility. And so I am Pasha Roberts. I live in
Thanks.
Wilmot, New Hampshire, and I'm on the board of 603 Equality, and I'm here to speak in opposition of HB1442. So thank you for your attention. And I appreciate your attention to intersex people. I am one of those intersex people that everybody's talking about. You have to know that there are over 80 genes, not just one, but 80 genes, many other factors that determine sexual differentiation. There's no silver bullet. There's no single factor. SRY is definitely not that one. I'm going to give you articles that walk through the science, but for today, I will present to you a supermodel, Gabby, Hannah Gabby Odiel. This is a picture of her on a cover of Vogue. With no modification, she was born with everything you would expect in a woman externally, including in the pants. But she's XY. She has an SRY gene on that Y chromosome. There's something really wrong with this law. If you need this woman to be in the bathroom, it is a problem. The Olympics did use the SRY test from 1992 to 96, and they stopped it 30 years ago due to many problems. They've been recently forced to bring it back, and these problems have come back. It mainly served to identify intersex people who didn't know they were intersex, and they have exceptions that this law does not have. The geneticist who discovered SRY, Andrew Sinclair, has repeatedly urged that SRY never be used for sex categorization. I'll give you that documentation. Its use will bring inaccuracy and invites lawsuits. There's a significant loophole in this bill because it is a test just for young people. As XY men age, most of us lose our Y chromosomes. 40% of men over 60 are missing their Y, rising to 57% at age 90. So this means that by the letter of this bill, they are allowed into the ladies' room. It's to say that more than half of the entire legislature, of the presumably male legislature, would be legal in the women's room in this. It's a huge oversight. This test is not made for this. This will invalidate your enforcement capacity. The bill also introduces significant financial obligation. My microarray test costs $1,000. Is there a provision to pay for these tests? Who pays for it? I'll stop there, but I urge you to mark this bill as inexpedient to legislate. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Senator Oshler.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pasha, for answering my question. You mentioned in your testimony that Andrew Sinclair, who actually discovered and studied the SRY, has said very publicly that the Olympic Committee, the IOC, should not be using that test as a determinant for who is a woman and who should be able to compete in the Olympics, and that his development of the SRY test was not reliable for the determining of biological sex. So is it your testimony that the state of New Hampshire should listen to the person who developed this test and also not use this?
Right. There's so many reasons. I mean, I'll give you this article. The SRY gene test
Thank you.
for women
Yeah.
athletes is misguided. I should know. I discovered the gene in 1990. One of the problems, first off, there are 80 genes that determine what happens with sex. I'm not going to name the others because you're going to look for them. But, a fleck of skin or hair from a male lab tech will make the test look like it's male and send somebody to be a criminal in New Hampshire or ruin their Olympics career. And that's why they stopped it. So
May I follow up?
we're teed up.
And according to your testimony and what we know about the SRI test, as reported very recently, is that it's not effective in an older generation.
Right.
And so at a certain point in time, which would be applicable to this entire legislature for the most part, save maybe half a dozen people, it wouldn't be conclusive. It actually could give a false positive.
Right. Yeah, the Y chromosome is weak, it's low in information, it's very fragile, it basically falls off and doesn't replicate. It's not needed very much after, the sexual differentiation happens at 2 months in the womb. And after that, there's not a lot of new information there. So you could just put women's room pretty much here in the House and you'd be good by the letter of the law.
And last follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Last
So
follow-up,
when we hear assertions that we should listen to the science, the science being asserted in this bill is actually inconclusive and has been dissuaded from use by the person who discovered it and developed the test.
Yeah. And I mean, for the House, I actually brought a professor, a high-level medical professor from medical school in Boston. They gave her 2 minutes and didn't ask any questions. So we didn't repeat that exercise here, but this is her whole thing.
Yeah.
And she's outraged at this kind of thing. She was just shaking her head all the way through the testimony.
Thank you very
Any
much.
questions? Okay.
We're good.
Give
Thank
you
you.
some pictures of supermodels here.
Amy, you want to go now?
Good evening.
Evening.
I was really hoping I could say good afternoon. For the record, my name is Amy Teravecchia. I'm the Executive Director of 603 Equality. I'm here to oppose this bill. We've heard this bill and others like it numerous times. We've heard from multitudes of constituents why bills like these are bad for New Hampshire. I think it might be helpful right now to just kind of summarize what we've heard across two different legislative bodies, multiple years, and just 6 bills this legislative session. So we've heard from experts that have outlined that this rinse and repeat legislation is likely to be vetoed, just like its predecessors have. We've heard from scientists, doctors, and intersex individuals who have attempted to educate you on how both anatomy and gender are too nuanced to effectively legislate. We've heard from business owners who are worried about enforcement and the lawsuits that will surely follow. We've heard from New Hampshire residents who want government out of their bathrooms and locker rooms. We've heard from caretakers of young children who are concerned about how these bills would create situations where they could not accompany their minor children into the restroom. We've heard from care providers who are equally concerned about logistics of navigating a policy like this when needing to accompany and care for folks with mobility issues. We've heard from cis women, myself included, who have outlined the safety and privacy concerns of enforcing a policy like this. And yet, both legislative bodies seem to prioritize the voices of out-of-state interest groups and the same playbook as national party politics to distract from real issues and concerns facing New Hampshire. I talk to New Hampshire residents every single day, and I will tell you what they think of this. It is divisive identity politics. It's designed to distract us. It is dilatory. It is discriminatory, and they are tired of this nonsense. I urge you to listen to the overwhelming consensus of voices from your constituents, and I urge you to recommend ITL on 1442. Happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. If there is an issue with the definition that's provided here for biological sex, which is page 1, lines 21 to 28, is there an alternative definition that you would suggest for the committee?
No, there are 40 different types of biological sex that have so far been discovered. It is too nuanced an issue to legislate.
Thank you.
Any questions? Nope, we're all set. Thank you, Amy. Claire Abernathy. Sorry to hold you up all afternoon.
No worries. Hello again. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Claire Abernathy, and I'm a 21-year-old detransitioner here to support HB 1442. Others have spoken and will speak again later about the risks of allowing boys into girls' spaces, but I want to offer a different perspective. When I was in the 8th grade, I underwent medical interventions to appear more like a boy, including testosterone injections and a double mastectomy, because I believed that I was a boy. I transferred to a new school where no one knew about my past, and I was placed in a boys' gym class and used the boys' restroom and locker rooms. Despite everything, people immediately could tell that I was female. Testosterone deepened my voice and it gave me facial hair, but it did not change my height or my physical vulnerability. I didn't realize it at first, but I was in danger. After about a month at this new school, a group of boys attacked me in the restroom. I was beaten and had my face smashed into a mirror where I broke a tooth. When I reported it, the school gave all of us, me and the boys, a detention and told me that boys will be boys. After that, I avoided drinking liquids in the morning to avoid having to use the restroom, but it didn't protect me. A boy waited for me in the locker room and sexually assaulted me. He threatened to kill me if I told anyone, and I didn't believe that the school would help, so I stayed silent. I was not protected by being placed in a boys' locker room or restroom. I was put at risk. A bill like this would have protected me. Testosterone did not eliminate the physical differences between me and the boys around me. Sex-based differences in strength and aggression are real, and they're not defined by hormones, and they matter for children's safety. I urge you to protect all children, regardless of their identity, by passing this bill. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Nope, we're good. Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Simon Price.
Good afternoon, committee. Long time no see. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Simon Amaya Price, and I am in strong support of this bill. I have been on a strange journey. I used to be transgender. Now I'm not, and now I talk about it. It came to my attention a couple weeks ago that a certain representative accused me of being flown in from out of state and paid to testify here. Not only was I not paid, but I'm losing money doing this. I drove here with my friend Claire today, and I'm paying for gas, and as I'm sure you know, gas is not cheap right now. While it is true that I'm here because I love the state and its people, my true motive is different. When I'm 75, I want to be able to sit under my own vine and fig tree and know that I've done absolutely everything in my power to make this country and the state safe for my children and my future children. I don't want my kids to go through what I went through. I don't want them to be lied to the adults they're supposed to be trusting or to be groomed into rejecting their sex. I don't want my future daughters and granddaughters to have to share bathrooms with men who we have no way of knowing whether or not they're predatory. The other side wants you to think I'm here out of malice and hate and cruelty, but that couldn't be further away from the truth. I see their pain. I see your pain. I know what it's like to be in the place you are. You can spit on my name and threaten my life, but I will choose every time to tell hard truths instead of easy lies, because I love each and every one of you, because you are my fellow man and you are my fellow Americans. I don't agree with many of your decisions. Many of the things you believe you want to do with all your heart, I am in stark opposition to. This bill is an example of one of those differences. I know you may not understand right now why it is wrong for men to invade women's spaces, or even what I mean when I say that, but I hope that this bill, if passed, will save you from future embarrassments and serve its primary purpose of protecting women's spaces and safety. We all have the choice to tell hard truths or easy lies. Join me in doing the former, and please vote ought to pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're all set. I'm going to not do well with this name. Browen? I don't know. Browen, something like Browen? I can't make out the other letters. Look at this. Deb.
Bronwyn?
Brownman? Just show it to Deb one sec. She might notice it. She's gone. Okay. Gone. Okay. Thank you. This is easy. Philip Sherman. He left. Okay. Understand. Rebecca Hoskins? Something close to that. Hi, Rebecca. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you so much for listening to all of us. My name is Rebecca Hoskins. I'm a lifelong resident of this state and I currently reside in Concord. I have come to speak to you today to urgently oppose this bill. This bill poses great risk of harm to all Granite Staters. I'm a gender non-conforming person, but biologically female. I can appear to be masculine or feminine presenting depending on my mood. Gender is a dress-up party and I do what I want. I accept any and all pronouns. I have spoken and written to other Senate committees and House committees about my experiences living in New Hampshire with this identity. This bill and other anti-LGBTQ bathroom bans like it are not going to keep public spaces or private spaces safe. In fact, bills like this make public spaces decidedly less safe. One of the reasons Governors Sununu and Ayotte have vetoed bathroom bans like this in the past is their inability to be enforced. How exactly are you going to stop all trans people from using bathrooms? Even if you believe someone in the bathroom is trans, you could be wrong. This was very much the case last year in Massachusetts when it was reported a woman using the bathroom in a Boston hotel was asked to leave the bathroom by a male security guard. Let's just think about that for a moment. Someone made a snap judgment about another person's gender and reported them for using the restroom. Then a male security guard walked into the woman's bathroom, banged on the stall, and demanded that woman leave the bathroom. As it turned out, the person who made that snap judgment was wrong, and that security guard had just harassed a cisgender woman. Are we about to make bathrooms in New Hampshire the Wild West, safe for no one? That story makes me fearful for something that could happen to me if I were to use the bathroom while wearing a suit. Would I need to submit to a cheek swab just because my clothing made someone uncomfortable? I understand it can be hard to understand a community that you're not a part of and that you don't necessarily have a connection to. However, that lack of comprehension doesn't give you the right to legislate a minority population out of existence. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no questions. Rachel, is it ST? Okay, there you go. I was going to be way off.
Hi, thank you for taking the time
Good
to listen to
afternoon.
us today.
Thank you.
My name is Rachel Steidehar, and I'm here to speak to you about the real problems facing our state. We are in an economic crisis. UNH Durham has lost more than almost 1,000 students in the last 5 years, and a significant proportion of that is out-of-state students. We have had significant budget cuts over and over and over again caused by declining enrollment, and that will be worsened by this bill. 1 in 4 students rule out colleges based on state politics, and a significant part of that is LGBTQ rights. We will be driving away out-of-state students who make up more than half of our school's population and pay double the tuition of in-state students. We can't afford that. Additionally, we are a brain drain state. Considered by Congress, more people are leaving than are coming back in who have important skills to grow our economy. And many, many companies, 337 of them, have signed statements that it makes it significantly harder for them to recruit new candidates if a state has harmful or harsh LGBTQ laws. This is not about trans people, it's about the future of New Hampshire. In fact, there's precedent here. North Carolina passed a similar bathroom bill quite a few years ago, and they lost more than $3.7 billion in companies leaving their state, canceling contracts, canceling expansions. PayPal, for example, scrapped a $2.5 billion expansion that would have brought 400 more jobs to the state because of their bathroom bill. Deutsche Bank canceled $500 million in new plans. The NCAA relocated championships out. Can we afford this in the state of New Hampshire? I don't believe that we can. They paid $700,000 in lawyers' fees just to defend this bill. Is that something New Hampshire can afford to do? Can we afford to worsen our brain drain problem and spend significant amounts of our state budget defending a bill that really is not necessary in the first place? I believe not. And I will take any questions.
Thank you. Seeing none, thanks for coming today. Todd Air?
I'm sorry, are you submitting that testimony or were those just your notes? That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Evening, Todd.
Good evening. So, as far as I can see, this bill proves the current problem with the conservatives and, more importantly, the Free Staters, which have hijacked this state in New Hampshire. You guys talk about the safety of children, and on one hand, you want to limit the bathrooms that people go into, yet you want to now make it legitimate and legal for people to open carry weapons onto campuses in our colleges. If these people are so concerned with our safety, perhaps they should address what is more dangerous, people with guns or people choosing different bathrooms. Now, you The conservatives tried to do this with race. You lost. The conservatives tried to do this with women. You lost. I am here to give you a cautious warning. If you go after the LGBT community anymore, we have a lot of money and we have a lot of power. We will fight you till the end. We will bury you and you will lose.
Thank you.
I'm gay. My name is, okay. My name is Todd Ayer. I'm head of the Political Action Committee for HRC New England, the strongest LGBTQ lobby in the nation, if not the world.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Eli Orne, O-R-N-E.
Hi there.
Hi, Eli. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you? Allow me to take a second to give my testimony.
Very good. If you cannot read it, if you want, it's just better. It's more effective. And if you just talk to us and not read testimony, but just my suggestion.
Right. I have some notes for time purposes.
Okay. Great. Go ahead. Anytime.
Right. Hi there. My name is Eli Orne, and I live in Durham. I'm a UNH student. I'm testifying in opposition to this bill, and I'm speaking on behalf of a peer who feels unsafe delivering this testimony himself. So these are his words. I am a transgender man, which means that although I was assigned female at birth, my body is male in appearance and I inhabit a male role socially. I have been on hormone replacement treatment for 3 years and have undergone surgery. My name has been legally changed and my driver's license and passport both list me as male. My quality of life has significantly improved since making these choices. When strangers meet me, I am perceived as a cisgender man. I am directed to men's bathrooms and changing rooms while in public, and I feel safe and comfortable in these spaces. I am not questioned for being in male-only spaces, and I have never been harassed or asked to leave while in them. And not only are where I prefer to be when given the choice, they are where others presume that I belong. When I accidentally entered a women's changing room, I was asked to leave. If HB1442 passes, I will be expected to use only female spaces intended for women. I understand that the intended purpose of this bill is to protect females and determine who is welcome in female spaces. I ask you to consider the perspective of people like me, who, although we fall within the definition of female outlined by this bill, I do not wish to be included in these protections. I do not belong in a female restroom, not only because of my own personal beliefs regarding my gender or my comfort level with being there, but because being forced into female-only spaces would make me and those who use them willingly uncomfortable. Women who perceive me as male and a man do not want me in their bathrooms just as much as I do not want to be there. If this bill becomes law, I am likely to have authorities called on me for using a female space. Being questioned would force me to disclose private medical information which I do not want to share. Also, how would people know that I'm telling the truth? People don't carry birth certificates or chromosome tests into restrooms, and inspecting genitalia would be unacceptable. At least I hope so. I should not face legal consequences for using the bathroom that makes me and others comfortable. This bill would make it impossible for me to access public facilities in New Hampshire safely or legally. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Sam Hawkins. Good evening. Sam, how are you doing today?
Evening, doing all right. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. For the record, my name is Sam Hawkins. I'm here today on behalf of NAMI New Hampshire in opposition to House Bill 1442. Our organization continues to be gravely concerned about the impacts of experiences with stigma and discrimination on the mental health of all people. In my written testimony, which I'll pass in, I do have some data about the experiences of transgender and non-binary young people here in New Hampshire with mental health symptoms and the outcomes. I won't read into the record, but I do want to highlight that this data, as well as the testimony of the transgender and non-binary Granite Staters who have come to this hearing and several other hearings, show that there is an impact directly from these policies, and not just these policies if they are put into law, but the discussion of these policies. This is incredibly concerning for us when we consider that we are having these discussions countless times, session after session, and the impacts that will have on our trans and non-binary neighbors, but also their families, their loved ones, their friends, and the community as a whole. As such, I'll wrap up my testimony just by strongly urging the committee to vote down House Bill 1442 and all of the other bills that would do similar that would enact similar policies and instead focus on laws and practices that would improve mental health outcomes for your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no questions. Good night.
Thank you.
Hazel Kane. Evening.
Thank you. Hazel Kane, here opposing House Bill 1442. This is the third time I've been up against a bathroom bill. First time was in this very committee. Second time, last time, I actually got maligned on national conservative media for it. Tucker Carlson, Off the Press, New Hampshire News, Libs of TikTok all picked me up. They tried to dox me, defame me, say that I was institutionalized in 2017. I was not. I've never been hospitalized. Don't even have a criminal record. 30 years old. I'm a law student. And I'm willing to give all of that up if this bill passes because I don't know what we're expecting this law to accomplish. If right now trans women are continuing to use women's restrooms with all the harassment and backlash, a law is not going to make us stop. It's not going to make me stop. I am perfectly used to abuse and assaults. I mean, if somebody says that they're going to teach me a lesson, make sure I never use a women's bathroom again, go ahead, punch me in the face. Maybe you can do a better job rearranging it than my father did when I was 19 years old, and he gave me orbital fractures on both eyes and a broken nose. Maybe he'll feminize me a little better than he could. I think it's important to know that my dignity means more to me than I think privacy means to any cisgender woman supporting this bill. I will go in and I will not be deterred. I will take the fines and the penalties because I am a biological woman. My brain, my hypothalamus, I am a biological female, sex by brain. Whatever my reproductive organs tell you, whatever my chromosomes tell you, has no impact, no bearing on my behaviors. 28 years I tried to be a man. I tried to act the way people wanted me to act based on how I looked, and I couldn't do it. It was impossible. I finally decided to start presenting because I needed to make people leave me alone. I actually don't really care about looking like a woman. Body image doesn't really mean much to me at all, actually. People say it's like an autogynephilic sexual fetish or a fantasy. Actually, I just want people to treat me the way I know I need to be treated because the way I am is not the way people perceive me. So I just want you to know that if this bill becomes law, I'm actually going to care even less about passing because if nothing I do will ever convince you that I am a woman, if you'll only see me as a biological male, I'll just look like a man and I'll do whatever I want to do. I'll go into women's bathrooms. And if you want to, again, try to punish me, beat me up, it's happened to me before and I'll let it happen again. I'll show you all to be the monsters that you are if you're going to hit me. I'm not going to fight back. I'm not an aggressive, violent person, and I will make the world see that if I have to. Thank you, and I'll take questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Hazel, for taking my question. First, I just want to acknowledge that I'm so sorry that you have internalized the violence that is externally all around you, and I'm very sorry. You testified, you're 30?
Yes, I am turning 30 in a few weeks.
And a law student here?
I am a law student.
Okay. And so you're a New Hampshire resident, young New Hampshire resident, pursuing a degree in law. You're exactly who we're trying to attract to the state.
I've lived here my entire life, actually.
We're in danger of losing you over a bathroom bill. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Regardless, though, finish law school.
Well, only if you stop harassing me, because if I go into a women's restroom and I am assaulted or told to leave and it gets me suspended from law school, too bad. It's worth more to me than anybody's, complaints. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Jo Lamb.
Hello.
Hello, Shelley Jo. How are you doing tonight? Good.
My name is Shelley Jo. Before I get started, I want to make sure that it's understood that my positions are my personal.
I'm sorry, you're not the red, yeah.
What do I need to do?
Just push it. It'll turn.
Push the button? Okay, we good. Yeah, before I get started, I want to make sure that you understand that I'm speaking in my capacity as a citizen and not in any official capacity or as a position of any former or current employee. I am a public servant, like most of the people working in this room. I work for DCYF in Nashua, and I've been there for 4 years. I live in Manchester, and this is my home. But I have a longer career than just those 4 years. For 14 years, I worked for the state of Kansas. I loved what I did working for the state of Kansas. I bought a house 2 blocks from the facility where I worked. I intended to give them another 30, 40 years of my life, retire, and die 10 miles from where I was born. Kansas had other plans. So if you've been watching the news, you see how bad things have gotten in Kansas, and it's just gotten worse since I left. I came out as transgender. They made my life a living hell because there were no laws and there were no policies to protect me on those things in Kansas. So I did my research and I looked around at different places I could live, and I chose here, New Hampshire, to make my career and to live. And I think the big piece to me for that is the policy, or not the policy, but the slogan, live free or die. And I'm sure that's a point of pride for every Granite Stater. I know it's a point of pride for me, but it's more than just a point of pride, it's a promise. And I'm here to tell you it's a promise that's been fulfilled for me. I'm living my dream here. I have my wife here, I have my kid here. I'm so blessed and thankful to be working for the taxpayers of the state of New Hampshire. And this will affect me very negatively. And how it will affect me is I work in an office in Nashua. There's a women's room and a men's room. Since I started working there in Nashua, I've always used the women's room. I'm just one of the girls at the office, okay? I think it's really important to understand that. I also have male coworkers. I can't imagine what it would be like for me to all of a sudden, after 4 years of service, to just walk into the men's room, walk past a row of dudes doing their thing. Like, no. That's ridiculous. That would make them very uncomfortable. These are my colleagues. It would make me very uncomfortable, and I shouldn't have to do that. But it leaves me with very unsavory options. Do I pick up my life and move again? I don't want to do that. I lost everything when I moved out here, but I gained so much, it's been worth it. And the other option would be to just ignore the law. But then I have a wife and a kid dependent upon me. What happens if I lose my job? What happens if I get prosecuted? What happens to them? So I vehemently oppose these laws, and they've been struck down again and again at the executive level. I'm so thankful for that. And both by Republican governors, by the way, since I've been here. And I think it's important to understand that this is inexpedient to legislate. It really is. You can go ahead and put it in, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And I'll tell you one thing, the choice that I've made is to live free or die. That is what I'll do, in spite of any tyranny that the government tries to impose upon me. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Bianca from Waypoint. Okay. Anyone else wish to testify who we haven't got to or missed? Come on up. Oh, we had to go. It's okay, we'll get you. Just say your name for the record today.
Tanya Kreger from Brookline.
Thank you.
So I think I put my name in, but maybe you guys didn't get it. So I came here with a very short thing prepared. I have a bunch of names here in front of me. These are the names that I got off the internet, just kind of Googling or, Google's AI or whatever now. Nicholas Tessagrosa, Tuan Champa Dao, Dana Allen Caruso, the VDC staff at VDC, a bunch of people, I guess. Travis Demirs, Eric Muldowney, an unnamed masked man, Todd E. Prevost, Zachary Bishop, and Johnson Yaroslevich, butchering the name. One thing that I can note about this list is none of these people are trans women, but they were all convicted or charged with either indecent exposure or harassment or something to do with a bathroom or a locker room, a women's room. I've yet to find a trans woman who's been charged with anything. I mean, there's the Conval case, but that's one person who was uncomfortable. And then the Protecting Education organization, that's a right-wing, anti-woke organization, took up the case on this student's behalf, and now here we are. This is a bill that is a solution looking for a problem that doesn't exist. And it's been said before. And we live in a time right now where it's going to be looked back like the satanic panic back in the 80s. You know, this is the trans panic of the 2000s or whatever, or the 2020s. It doesn't make any sense. The science disagrees with this. Just the social contract that people have disagrees with this. I am a trans feminine person, but although I have female on my license, my name is Tanya legally, I don't look much like a Tanya though, do I? Right? So do I expect to be welcome in the ladies' room? No. You know, but 2 years from now, after I've had surgeries, after the hormone treatments have done their work, after I don't look like this anymore, it's not going to be safe for me to go into the men's room. So what do? You know, I heard it talked about before. We're going to make, the suggestion is to have gender inclusive spaces. Great. I'm all for, unisex bathrooms literally everywhere. However, this bill is proposed at the bottom says that the budgetary cost for this or the expense for this bill is going to be $0. How is that going to work when we're building all of these extra multi-gender spaces? And lastly, to kind of address something that's been said a couple of times here, I'm a software engineer, actually security engineer now in software. I've been living in New Hampshire on and off for about 20 years. I've currently been living for 10 years in a home that I bought in Brookline. I pay over $12,000 in taxes every year in Brookline. I am contributing to the economy because I buy things here, I shop here. But bills like this make New Hampshire seem less welcoming, less inclusive, and potentially, if we go the way of Kansas and Idaho, where Idaho is pretty much like, because of bathroom bills, opened up the path to life in prison after 3 or 4 infractions of using the bathroom that fits your gender. If we go that route, I can't stay here. I can't live here. So I'm going to be another one that New Hampshire will lose if things like this keep going. We have to stop going in this direction. This is a dangerous direction. So I am here to vehemently oppose this.
Thank you. We had one more who wanted to testify. I didn't have any list. You might have done this. 3 or 4 pages.
All right. Good evening. My name is Scott Files. I'm from Somersworth. And not in my testimony, but I want to thank you for giving everybody ample time to speak today. Every other hearing like this I've attended has had cutoffs. And so I appreciate giving everyone a voice. I'm going to try and summarize what I emailed to you all last night. As we all know, there's been a slew of similar bills, all with like slightly different wording, addressing things brought up in the testimonies. It's been a lot of back and forth. What about intersex people? What about if I need to accompany someone who needs direct care into a restroom? And that back and forth, that tennis match can go on indefinitely as I see it. But it all has started with the knee-jerk fear of no men in women's bathrooms. So that's what I want to go back to with my testimony today. I am a man. I'm an uncle, a son, a brother, a godfather. My name is Scott. I walk around in public. I use men's rooms all the time. With this bill, I would be required to use women's rooms. Hold on, let me catch myself here. Clearly, based on what I just said, I'm a transgender individual. At birth, my parents were handed a baby girl. I was raised as a girl. I'm not a girl. It took me a little while to figure it out. And all I can speak is to my own experience, but I know that I am a man, regardless of what my genes say, my genetic code, which I don't know, not necessarily relevant to my everyday life. I'm just trying to do my own thing. It's really hard for me to believe that someone would look in me and say, yes, Scott needs to be using a women's room. That's quite a statement. And the flip side of that is if I'm a man and I belong in a men's room, my trans identity is just an adjective, just describing my past, my personal evolution. The flip is that trans women are also women. All of these bills are specifically targeted towards trans women who are women with a history of maybe not being raised as a woman. They were identified male at birth or have some other situation, but the attacks on even a specific subset of the transgender community is so incredibly concerning. Transgender women are at high risk of violence and prejudice, as we've heard today. So even as I sit here as a trans man, I experience a certain level of privilege that my, other members of my community don't get to experience. So I want to emphasize that with my testimony. And I didn't follow along in my notes at all, but I hope that made sense. And I am very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Senator Ambus has one at least.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony and your patience for waiting.
My pleasure.
So this bill, it covers a lot of bathroom issues. You have the municipal bathrooms that's covered in one section. You have the school bathrooms, and then you have the bathrooms of private establishments. With municipal and school, that's I think that creates separate issues than the private establishment. Is there an objection to private establishments being able to choose how they want to separate their bathrooms? And what it would do is really address a discrimination claim regardless of what direction they went.
Just to make sure I understand the question, like a private establishment, like a restaurant,
Yes.
or something, saying that this is a women's room or a men's room,
Yes.
and enforcing that. I was thinking on the way here, the times that I use the bathroom most in public is right before I eat because I love to wash my hands. How would they know? I've never ever been questioned going into a men's room, but imagine a situation. I think someone in Idaho testified, another trans man like me. If I walk into a women's room, a father, a husband sees me follow their child or their spouse or a friend, a female friend, into the bathroom, they're going to be extremely suspicious, probably potentially aggressive. Me abiding by a private establishment's rules regarding that would put me at risk. I wouldn't be doing any harm going into a women's room. My female coworkers, my female family members, strangers feel safe around me. I'm no risk to anyone in that space, but I would be put at risk if I were forced to go into women's restrooms.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your patience. My question for you is, in evaluating this legislation that you came out here to testify against, really targets women, not men, and inadvertently by targeting women who are gender non-conforming, you get swept up in it.
Right, and I wanted to point that out. The target of this bill is not me. And I didn't want my testimony to only be about me, Scott, will be affected. I care and I love so much the trans women in my life, and they are at risk. I'm a side effect of a legislative move like this. So that's how I'm able to sit here and present my specific perspective. But I wanted to emphasize that I know I'm not really the target. As far as I'm aware, it's the trans women. And you can look at the statistics of how much violence and hate and suffering they experience across the country. It's getting worse every day. All of us here that are testifying against this bill are seeing it everywhere. There's every state. And it's a knee-jerk reaction to the fear and the misunderstanding. Calling a trans woman like a man in a dress, that's a thing that is repeated, is as inaccurate as calling me a woman in pants or something. Like it isn't relevant. It just speaks to a misunderstanding of what being transgender is. And I wish I could help more than saying what I've said today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much. Does anyone else wish to testify? Come on up. Just say your name so we know you're. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going to end it. I'm going to end it. Representative Kelly Potenza, Stratford District 19. I literally just want to say a couple sentences here. I guess what I don't understand is in Stratford County, we have representatives that I'm in the delegation with. I have a lot of respect for that are transgender. This bill isn't for anyone else except for bad actors. And that's really what it comes down to. People that are testifying today, that's not an issue. No one is going to say anything about them going into, like Alice, for example, from Stratford County. I would never have any issue with Alice going into the restroom, the female restroom. We're talking about folks that are saying that they are one thing to expose themselves and things like this. And it's just so much more than bathrooms. There's not going to be policing and swabs or any of that kind of stuff. The only way you can have any sort of accountability is if someone's coming into for example, a locker room, or if we're talking about in a prison, those things are happening. They're happening right now. I mean, are you not looking at the reports in Maine where they put biological males in female prisons and the rapes that are taking place? These things are happening. There's violence and there's horrible things that are happening from bad actors. And if we don't have these things in our law that have some guardrails, that's not going to happen. And there shouldn't be, I don't know why people think that there's this level of attack or whatever. You have to define things, and it's the only way we can do it to live in this kind of environment. And I just, I don't want hate on any side. There shouldn't ever be any violence. And, the violence that the detransitioner was talking about that took place in a male restroom, or anything that happens in a female restroom, none of that should be happening at all. You come in, you do your business, you leave. This is for people that are exposing themselves and doing bad things. And right now, there is nothing. There's a cover that has been put in place that is protecting folks that are bad actors, and that's a problem. So.
Thank you very much. Senator Ridden has a question if you'll take it.
If you'll take a question.
Sure.
That's what criminal laws are for, correct?
That is what criminal laws are for, but unfortunately they're not being. So for example, I'm going to use a story from a constituent, Planet Fitness. They had a gentleman that said, he identifies as a female, and he was in the locker room, the female locker room at Planet Fitness in Rochester, exposing himself. And now they don't go there anymore. They told the management there, and they said there was nothing that they could do because that's how he identifies. He's obviously a creep. I've had tons of conversations with state representatives. We have a brand new state representative, Billy Butler from Somersworth. We get along wonderfully, and he doesn't understand what is actually happening in some of these places. There's a protection right now because someone just says, "Oh, well, I am this," and there's people that are bad actors, and there's bad actors on all sides. I'm not just, it doesn't matter what your gender is or anything. And unfortunately, there's a cover right now, and that's what's covering it. And people are leaving in droves. When that law passed in 2018, I don't know if everybody remembers, I was actually living here, not in, of course, like in Merrimack County. And so there used to be a Bed Bath & Beyond. And I'll never forget, my girls were little, and we were at the store, and this woman came out with her daughter and was all freaked out because there was a man in the restroom and there was nothing that they can do. They went to the manager. They're like, there's nothing that they can do because he identifies as a female. So that kind of stuff makes people very, very uncomfortable when you've got a big burly man with a full beard and stuff like that that's hanging out in a female spaces. And that is about privacy. That's the piece. It's not about someone going in and doing their business. Nobody cares about that. It's about people that are doing things that are just not right. And unfortunately, it's not protected right now in the criminal code.
May I follow up?
You sure can.
Thank you. Planet Fitness doesn't have to call the police, and Bed Bath & Beyond doesn't have to call the police. Every individual citizen who feels like they are the victim of a crime have the right to call the police. And I would suggest that's the solution. None of these people want to be assaulted or have anybody expose themselves to them. That is criminal activity. And in every one of these hearings that I've participated in, we start blending criminal behavior with people who are just living their lives.
I 100% agree with that.
So let's keep the criminal code in the criminal code and not bless others with that activity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are we all set? Is that everyone got a chance? Seeing no one else, that'll end it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Nobody wants to.